Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Tech Tuesday, What's New from Aras Webinar Series. This is Julianne Grant. I'm Head of Marketing here at Razorleaf, and I'm joined with Milan Obradovic, who is the host of our Tech Tuesday series. Today's episode is talking about Release 32 from Aras, which has some interesting things from the Supplier module. So Milan's going to take us through that. A couple of housekeeping notes. We have a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. And then we're also going to be sending out a recording. So anyone who's registered will get this recording within a couple of days. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Milan.
All right, thanks, Julianne. Yep. Well, everyone, welcome back to Tech Tuesday. So per usual, we're going to quickly go through our agenda, and then we'll get right into the meat of the presentation. So per usual, first off, we're going to start really with what's new in Release 32. We got some pretty exciting stuff there, around responsive forms, a little bit configurable web. And then also we're going to be getting into some, pretty important product updates that might impact you in the future as you're, starting to look at upgrades and, how we're moving functionality around. So we'll get into that, and then per usual, follow up with Q&A and a little bit of wrap up promoting some of our upcoming events. So let's go ahead and get into it. So here's some notable release notes coming out of Innovator 32. First things first, Configurable Web Services. If you attended our last Tech Tuesday, I did a pretty comprehensive breakdown of how those are configured and how we can really create some low-code connections into our Aras environment. So Innovator 32 brought us some, continued updates to this functionality. So, updates to API key generation. They're a little more versatile. Authentication isn't as difficult to set up for connecting to your Aras environment. We've added the ability to do some batch processing, so we're not necessarily launching, multiple jobs for something that can be handled by one. There's some updates to OAuth configuration, and the ease of uploading files things have gotten a lot easier around file uploads with this new update to Configurable Web. Next up is responsive forms. So we got some more robust features for responsive forms. So we're continuing to build those out, get them closer and closer to what we had with, the classic form editor. So continued improvements to conditional fields. I think one of our last demonstrations, we took a look at how we can, show and hide fields based off of other values. We've added some new functionality in terms of, we can change the size of images, change the color of the font and the field itself. We're able to set up our forms for specific view types, for example, if we're doing a view, edit, or add, and also improved packaging logic around responsive forms. Next things, Aras Supplier Management Solutions, another new application we get to introduce here on Tech Tuesday. So really the purpose of Supplier Management Solutions is it allows you to manage your supplier data within Aras, and then provide external access to your supplier contacts through the new Aras portal. And we'll get to take a look at that today. Then following that up, some updates to the TechDoc framework. So one, just the ability to add list and item type properties within your TechDocs. And also a pretty nice feature to have is the ability to edit reference content directly within other TechDocs. So for example, if I had an overarching TechDoc and I had 3 blocks of text, I can edit them directly from that top level technical document. Don't have to necessarily open up the child to modify that text anymore. So a nice ease of use feature for TechDocs framework, and we should see that ease of use start to move into some of our other applications that rely on it, like MPP and requirements management. So first things first, our responsive form updates, and hope you guys enjoy the new screen recordings I've been adding to these. So first, we're going to add some additional formatting options for our responsive forms. And the first thing I had at the top right here is the ability to conditionally format our fields for color, not only just hide show. So in this case, I did a conditional statement. If a item is released, we're going to make that part number field black. We're going to make the font white. So just to indicate, this is not going to be editable anymore. This is currently in a release state. Another thing that was added, and you'll see in our animation there, is the ability to resize images. So one of the early sort of issues with responsive forms was, if we had a thumbnail on our responsive form, it would show up strange. In this case, we have a whole wide column for our image, but it's showing up small. So this allows us to drag, resize our field, get a better look at that thumbnail or whatever image we add to our form. And then also the ability to configure our individual responsive forms for specific scenarios like viewing, editing, or adding a new item. So following up on that, we'll be taking a quick turn over to Aras Supplier Management Solutions. So once again, this is a brand new Aras application that's going to be compatible with releases 22 and up. So even though it's brand new, they provided some backwards compatibility to some of our older releases. So there is a certified version for release 22, one for 27, and then obviously one for release 32. Supplier Management Solutions is composed of really two key components here. One obviously being the Innovator Application, and the other being the Aras Portal. So within the Innovator Application, we're just going to have the ability to sort of manage a supplier record and all those things that go along with it. For example, scorecards, corrective actions, questionnaires, really the whole 9 yards there. And then there's the Aras Portal, which is its own distinct application. It runs on its own distinct application pool, has its own URL, allowing for suppliers to access records that are related strictly to them. So that's going to be any CAD files that may pertain to their parts that are living in your system, documents, their supplier records. They can review how they're doing in your eyes. And it provides the ability for these external users to vote on workflows. So if they have an action on a SCAR, if they have to approve a buyer notice, or even if they want to send over a supplier alert directly into your system. So while these are two distinct applications and they're different application pools, they do connect to the same database. So those suppliers are going to be seeing whatever data they're going to be allowed to see in your Innovator database. But they're going to look distinct to each other, and that's something we're going to take a look at. So the UI for the Aras portal is going to be driven by something called the Pro App Designer. It's something developed by another Aras partner named Prorigo. While the Innovator application, that UI is going to remain the same. It's going to be your normal Aras forms and look very familiar to you. So really quickly, I wanted to give a quick sneak peek preview of what demo we're going to look at. Looks like my video is not playing there either. So really, we at Razorleaf, we're going to be our own manufacturing firm instead of consulting today. We received a supplier alert from our supplier Acme, and we're going to be coordinating some activities with our main contact, Acme guy, in response to that alert. And then Acme guy is going to be able to go into the supplier or the Aras portal and interact with us, respond to our actions, vote on our workflows, and review some data that we've made available to him. So you'll see some action going on with our Aras UI and the Aras portal. So that's a user going in, creating a buyer notice, and then our Acme guy being able to log in, open that buyer notice, and review what information's been provided to him. So at this point, we're going to switch over and start taking a look at what this application can do for us. So first things first, we're going to open up our Aras environment, and we're going to open it up into our in basket. So I'm logged in as Innovator admin, but in reality, I'm playing the role of our key supplier manager. I'm our supplier management admin in this case. And in this case, I'm looking at my in basket and see that I have a supplier alert. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this item. So this supplier alert is something that was generated in the portal and sent into our Innovator environment. And from this supplier alert, we see that there's some financial risk going on, high severity issue, and Acme's raising their prices. Their 1000 series components are going to have a 10% price increase starting Q1 of 2025. So me as our supplier manager, we're going to review this and start to react to this information. So at this point, I may want to send a message back, send a notice back to our supplier. To do that, I can go ahead and head to supplier management, open our suppliers list, and see our supplier Acme. From here, I can right click on my supplier and have a few menu options for actions I can perform directly from the search grid. First thing I want to do is create a new buyer notice. This is me communicating as the buyer to our supplier. So in this case, let's say this new pricing is going to cause some financial strain for us. We probably won't be able to afford to buy as many components as we want to, or that will meet our needs as a manufacturer due to this price increase. So in this case, I can specify a headline to this notice. I can specify the type of this notice and the severity, how much it's going to impact either the supplier, us as the buyer, or just together as a business relationship. So I'm going to say this is a high risk buyer notice and select create. So now when I open up my supplier record, and this is a pretty basic form here, allowing you to capture, the name of the supplier, key contact information, etc. But now when I open up my supplier record, I can head over to the buyer notices tab and see that we now have a new buyer notice in the status of draft. So I'm going to quickly open that up and sort of fill in a few of these. Fill in a bit of the metadata here on my buyer notice. So really quickly, I'm just going to add some information here to cause issues with procurement, manufacturing. So for example, added a bit of description here, and now I can go ahead and vote this workflow forward to send this buyer notice off to my supplier. So really quickly, I'll go ahead and vote, notify supplier, and send that off. And you'll now see that our buyer notice is now in the activity of review notice. It's active, and it's assigned to specifically Acme Guy, who is our supplier contact. So if we take a look at our supplier contacts tab, we have a contact named Acme Guy specifically from Acme Corporation. So if I open up this record as a user, Acme Guy is going to actually have a user within the Aras environment. So that way Acme Guy can go in, log in, interact with any items he has to, for example, that buyer notice, and communicate back and forth with me, the buyer, and him as the supplier contact. So along with that buyer notice, we might want to start to kick off a few other processes. If that price increase is going to cause that much of a strain, we might want to negotiate down the price a bit. So that brings us to negotiation requests. So this is something already pre-created, but that's just an item type within the supplier management menu here on our table of contents. So I've created this negotiation request and just wanted to renegotiate this 1000 series component pricing. And we've also attached a contract. So with this contract, we're able to specify which components are affected. And we're able to attach documents, attach or relate negotiation requests to this contract. But really our goal of this contract here is to kind of set a limit for how much they're going to increase prices on us. We're pretty big buyer here, so give us a deal. So we've asked for a price increase of no longer than 5%, and we've also sent this contract over to Acme Guy. So along with yep,
Julianne, we're seeing a little bit of a lag here, so I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
Just we're seeing negotiation requests screen up. And it's, there we go. Now we're seeing your series pricing agreement screen. Is that what we're supposed to be seeing?
No. I will I'll pause here for a moment, let it catch up. And if we have any questions that have popped into the queue yet, I can answer those now. There's a decent shot some of that will be covered in the future, but I guess I'll let this sort of catch up, and just let me know when we're back on our supplier screen with the negotiation request tab highlighted.
Right now I'm looking at your Acme screen with negotiation requests highlighted.
Perfect. All right, we'll give it a sec to reset, and hopefully we don't have any more issues.
Yeah, sorry about that, but
Yeah.
I'm getting some chats in on that. So sorry about the connection challenges.
Yep, no worries.
Robert,
all right,
is
my cursor moving live right now? Hopefully. Okay. So hopefully connection issues are caught up, and I'll try to click a little more slowly, and hopefully things can stay on pace. So following our negotiation requests and our contracts, let's take a look at some other information that we can capture on the supplier record. So the next thing I wanted to show was how we can capture scorecard data. So let's open up that record and take a look. So on the scorecard record, we have the ability to capture based on a few different categories. So out of the box, it gives us the ability to capture based on, how great is their pricing, the lead times on our orders, on-time delivery, how many defects, and if they have any specific shortages. As we create this scorecard data, so this one, so as we create this scorecard data, it's going to automatically capture or calculate our average score, and it's going to maintain a record of previous release versions of our scorecard. So in this case, this is our first scorecard that we created, but if we were to create a brand new one, we would be able to see our progression over time. So as our scorecard goes from our first version to our ultimate most recent, we would hope to see obviously a positive progression with our suppliers. In this case, our supplier is doing pretty well on most of our categories here, but is struggling a bit on pricing. That's causing issues with communication. We've had our new negotiation request. We have a new contract out there, and that supplier alert kind of came out of nowhere. So in this case, we want to start off a new supplier corrective action as well. So if I open up our supplier corrective action record, you'll see this is distinct from the Aras quality management solution. This is its own record, strictly aligned with the supplier record. So on the supplier corrective action form, we have the ability to capture our issue description, root cause, corrective action, and future preventative action. So in this case, the price increases are causing some financial strain on our business relationship, and we captured a few root causes here. One being we had a lack of communication with that price increase. It came out a bit out of nowhere, just a supplier alert, and we could have a bit more communication on the long run. Along with that, we didn't have really a negotiation period with Acme before that price increase was announced. So we were able to capture a corrective action of performing some renegotiation in order to meet the needs of both Acme but also our business as well. And our preventative action is going to be beginning that renegotiation cycle earlier in the year to allow our business to really plan for that price increase more effectively for the next year. So now that all of these records are created, now it's time for our supplier to start to interact with all of these records. So let's go ahead and reset a bit on our Aras side, and let's head over to the Aras portal. So first things first, welcome to the Aras portal. One thing you'll note is our URL is distinct from our Aras one. So while Aras, we're signing in to Innovator Server, in this case, we're going to be signing into an entire different application. This is specifically Aras portal. And for the sake of this demonstration, at this point of the demonstration, I'm not going to be logging in as my supplier manager that I was in the Aras environment. I'm going to be signing in as Acme Guy or A Guy as our username here. So really quickly, I'm going to sign into our database and be greeted with our home screen in the Aras portal. So out of the box, these are all of the item types that are pre-configured to be available to supplier contacts. So that being CAD docs, contracts, documents, and all of those various tabs on our supplier record. So the first thing I wanted to take a look at was our suppliers in basket. So what you'll see is, based on all those records that we created in Aras, we have a few tasks to accomplish as our supplier. So the first thing that would make sense to do timeline wise is we sent out our supplier alert and we received our buyer notice as a response. So let's open up that record. So as me being the supplier contact, I can review the same information that we created in Aras. We'll see pricing causing financial strain, and I also added that description. That's being pulled directly from the Innovator environment. One thing you'll notice is we also have a pretty different UI here. While this looks pretty familiar to the basic Aras home screen, once we actually open up a record, this is pretty distinct. It's a bit of a more simplified view of what's living within Aras. So to navigate this, you will see that our form is pretty front and center, but our relationship tabs and what our supplier is going to be taking a look at, our relationship tabs are going to be located on the left side of our screen here. So after reviewing this buyer notice, me as the supplier contact, I can go ahead and vote to complete this task.
So slow down a minute, sorry, and let this catch up.
Yep.
Sorry. Yep.
So I'll let this recover a bit. Once again, my apologies for connection issues.
Yeah, that's probably a good webinar issue. I have a question that we might want to answer here.
Yeah, sure.
Can the login page of the Aras portal be modified? In the Europe, this page probably would need some additional information regarding legal topics, privacy statements, and things.
Yeah, I believe based off of how things are, built just in general with the Aras UI, it would probably take some code tree updates to make those modifications to the home screen. But I'm sure that'll be possible to add as a message either on the header or somewhere below that main menu with your buttons. And that could even be included as part of the login screen as well. That's something we've done many a times at Razorleaf is swap out what's that background. Instead of saying Aras portal, it could say company name portal, privacy statement. So definitely possible. And
just one more question on this login page. Can suppliers register themselves or to the portal? Do they do we have to register by themselves?
So any new supplier contacts will have to be created by I guess your supplier administrator. So suppliers could say request access from you, and you'll just have to go ahead, create a new contact, and provide them logon access to the portal.
Okay, great. I think we're caught up now too. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So when we last left off, we were taking a look at our buyer notice. And at this point, we had reviewed it. We're gonna go to vote to complete our task. So at this point, we have the ability to go ahead and ask for more information if the buyer notice is unclear. But in this case, let's go ahead and just acknowledge receipt and move on to our next couple items here. So along with that, we have our negotiation request. So within Aras, our negotiation request consisted of, pretty simple. We just want to renegotiate this 1000 series component pricing, and we attach that contract for the proper terms that we want to see. So from this negotiation request, I can go ahead and open my contract record and see what is involved here. So we get to see pretty basic terms here. Obviously, a proper supplier contract would have a bit more information than this. So that's why we have the ability to view any related files here, manufacturer parts, etc. So at this point, if the contract looks good, let's just say we agree to the terms. 5% seems like a reasonable meet in the middle. Me as a supplier contract can head back to my in basket, and once again, vote forward, complete that task as well. And then finally, really quickly, supplier corrective action. Same thing, we get to see all of the same information, the affected parts, files, etc. Just pulled into a more concise dashboard-like UI within the Aras portal. And we'll quickly vote to complete that as well and move on. Okay. So upon completion of those tasks, I think we're gonna hopefully let the stream catch up a little bit again. And we're gonna head back into our Aras environment.
Okay, we see Innovator now.
Okay. All right, so a few more things that I wanted to touch on, and these are more related to just what we're capturing here on the supplier record itself. So we've already really quickly taken a look at the contacts tab. I had a question on that. So to create a new contact, just creating a new relationship, it'll create a new user in the system. And if we want to provide them login access to the portal, fairly simple. We would just modify the user record and give them logon access. Along with that is phone numbers. So pretty simple relationship tab here. We have the ability to capture alternate phone numbers for alternate contacts within our supplier's organization. So in this case, pretty simple. I added a cell phone number for our friend Acme guy. Alongside that, if our supplier has multiple different manufacturing sites, we can specify those here. For example, Acme is based out of Dallas, but they also have a Detroit facility where they do some of their manufacturing on some of our components. We also have the ability to capture related manufacturer parts to that supplier, as well as related files. So in this case, sometimes those related files will not always fit comfortably within a document. And this allows us to really attach any file type we need and relate it to our supplier within the system. So then really the key thing that I did want to get into was the next two tabs that we have available to us. And that's going to be the shared items tab as well as the questionnaires tab. So shared items really is where we define the information that our supplier is able to see. So in this case, I have related every single MP010 star part number in this environment. And this is really what we'd expect to see in our supplier portal. So if I were to go back as Acme guy, really this is the information we'd anticipate as we log back in there. So let's go ahead, open up our portal and head over to our top three. So we've been focusing really on the supplier management at the bottom, but we didn't really get a chance to see how we are able to access these documents within the portal. So for example, if me, the supplier, had to review a specific CAD assembly, I can go ahead and open that up. I can see all of the specific metadata that is provided to us through the CAD item type within Aras. So we get to see the name, number, authoring tool, etc. But we also get to see our 3D visualization pulled directly from our Aras database. So a supplier could come in, take a look at our component, do all the fun 3D visualization activities, drag, drop. We can even do a little bit of markup as well. So let's say, cover option doesn't necessarily fit there. We can go ahead, save that, even attach it as a discussion on our supplier record, or even on that CAD record as well. Alongside that, there is a PDF viewer built in, just to allow us to view any documents that are living within the system that are also related to that component. So in this case, this is going to be MP103's just thumbnail image that's living within the environment. Alongside that, we have the ability to view documents as well in the same fashion. So we're going to see all the metadata you'd expect out of a document record, and have that file viewable and accessible within the supplier portal. Right. And then one last item to touch on is the questionnaires. So these really are more for gaining feedback from suppliers, but also gaining a bit of feedback from on if a supplier is truly qualified. So we'll let the stream catch up a bit, and we're going to take a look at how we can configure some questionnaires and how we can send those off to a supplier.
Hey, we're seeing an Acme screen.
Yep,
Oh.
that could be slowly catching up here.
Okay.
All right, so we should be getting close to caught up. So really the topic we're going to focus on here is going to be the ability to configure some questionnaires and how we can sort of gain some feedback from our suppliers. So the record I'll have open here, and hopefully when everything gets caught up, you'll get to see this. Is a questionnaire template. So what I built here is a pretty simple IT security questionnaire. How is your company manage shared data? Do you have some disaster recovery and incident response plans? Are you ITAR compliant? Maybe we're managing some ITAR data that needs to pass through compliant companies. So we will build that questionnaire. If this was not active, I could deactivate this, go ahead and make some more modifications, add new questions. These are just going to be captured as basic text, for example, how much RAM? Pretty simple. We could save that, set our questionnaire back to active, and then to actually launch this questionnaire and send it off to our supplier, I would head into our supplier search grid, and that's one of our other actions here above the buyer notice, is to create a new questionnaire from a template. So here I could search up my questionnaire templates, select that it's an IT questionnaire, and give our suppliers a due date. So we'll go ahead and create that record. We'll open the supplier back up just to verify that it was sent. We'll see 04 IT questionnaire, and that's with the status of response pending. So going back to the portal as our friend Acme guy, I can open up the questionnaires tab and see that I have a few with the status of response pending. I'll go in here, head to the questions and responses. Let's fill out a few responses here. And I'll type these out quickly. All right. So any more questions while we sort of catch up here on our stream?
I'm not seeing anyone in the portal.
Okay, we'll look like we are getting close.
We're caught up. Yep, the typing is caught up.
All right, perfect. So me as the supplier contact, I received my questionnaire, answered the questions to the best of my ability. Can select done. And let's go back to our in basket and vote this questionnaire as complete. So our specific questionnaire is going to be this QREO4 that we just answered. Once again, we can just right click, complete our task, vote this to submit our response, complete that action. And if we head back to Aras, we should be able to see our responses to that questionnaire. So now our questionnaire is at the state of in review or under review. We saw that it was submitted on August 27th. We received our response on August 27th, and we can see our questions and also the specific responses that our Acme reps have responded with. So once again, my apologies for the delays on the stream. Must be having some connection issues here, but that really concludes our quick overview of what's available to you through the Aras supplier management solution. So at this point, we can go ahead, I guess, open this up for any questions, and maybe have to go back and review some things that people may have missed through the delays.
All right, let's see what we have for questions here. Anyone has any questions, put them in the panel. Looks like I missed one from, hello?
Actually, sorry, Julianne, I missed a few things here. I got thrown out by the delays. So a few more slides on deck, got so wrapped up in the demo. So following up the demonstration, sorry, I had a few important product updates to sort of notify the public about here. So one thing that we've been continuously doing is keeping everyone informed on which releases are currently reaching the end of life. Obviously, if you're running anything 12 or older, get in the upgrade queue. You are, well, at this point, a couple months past end of life at the minimum. Along with the early releases of 14 plus, those have all been pushed into the end of life state. So that being 14, 15, and 16. But there's good news for those of you running 17 and up. Aras actually pushed back the end of life dates for those releases all to an even June of 2025. So while release 17 would have been on pace to be deprecated in August of 24 as 18 September, et cetera, those have all been pushed back to an even June of 2025. So you have a bit more time if you're running those releases, but anything preceding that, feel free to reach out to your partners and make sure that you are getting into that upgrade queue. Alongside that, specifically relating to upgrades, if you are moving or planning to move from any previous version up to release 32 and are running SQL Server 2012 or 2014, those are no longer compatible with Innovator. So look into that when you're planning your upgrade. Also get the IT team involved and make sure that your servers are up to date with what we need on the back end. And that goes along with our framework updates. So previously on Aras 14 plus, I think following release 22, we were running on the .NET Hosting Bundle 6.06. That has now been moved up to .NET Hosting Bundle 8.01, and that is now required to run Innovator. So if you install 32 and miss this, you'll get some errors as soon as you try to log into the system. So once again, reach out to your partners, whoever you're working with, to coordinate this upgrade, as both changes may lead to a little bit of added complexity for your next upgrade, getting some of that back-end IT infrastructure involved. Another key point here is, I think the last Tech Tuesday we mentioned that self-service reporting is going away as of release 31. And at the time, there wasn't really a tool that allowed you to export those SSRs and sort of migrate them into the new Aras reporting structure. So Aras Labs released a new tool that allows you to export SSRs as SQL queries and import them as query definitions. The link is above, and if you do a quick Google search of Aras Labs, you should be able to find it pretty easily. So this will be a new action that's added to Innovator. And upon launching it, it will export SQL that you can then use the tool to import back in as a query def. So be sure, if you're looking to upgrade to anything newer than 31, or really anything newer than 30, and you're using self-service reporting, export those SQL queries before you upgrade your Aras environment, just so you can avoid the effort of having to rebuild those reports. And with that, now we are ready for Q&A. My apologies.
No problem. Okay. And we do have a question in on the panel. So I assume the supplier portal is supposed to be online accessible while our main system might be hosted on premise. Is the solution bidirectional regarding data transfer? And is the data of the supplier portal transferred back to the main system or pulled by the main system?
Yeah, so when you're working with the Aras portal, you are working directly with the Innovator database. While the application is separate, it's running off the same backend database. So any new records or modifications to that record are being done directly to your database. In terms of data transfer, it's truly bidirectional and really is non-directional in that sense. But when it comes to running the portal, it is, I think, intended to be more of a cloud-based application. So you don't have to necessarily, for those of you, using VPNs to log into your Aras environments, the Aras portal, obviously we don't want, all of our supplier contacts also have direct VPN access into our system. So ideally, yeah, that would be a cloud-based solution there.
Okay. I'm not sure if you covered this already. Is how do we control how suppliers see data in the system?
Yeah, so the supplier data visibility is dictated by a DAC policy within the Innovator environment. So out of the box, the DAC policy is specifically applied to manufacturing parts, CAD parts, and documents. But obviously, if you wanted to expand the scope of what your suppliers can see, it would just be modifying those DAC policies to include more item types.
Okay, great. Do supplier contacts consume licenses?
So that is yes and no. So when that supplier user is created and has a logon enabled option ticked, it is consuming a license, but in this case, for the solution, that will be provided as a supplier contact license, separate from your genuine Aras subscription licenses. And if you have any further questions, just reach out to your specific salesperson to get those numbers.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any questions? Put them in the panel, please. Yeah, I think one more here. Can more item type be visible to suppliers accessing the portal?
Yeah, so one piece of that would be modifying the DAC policies that dictate supplier access. And another piece of that would be through building the views that suppliers would see. So for example, when I open up any of those records, that is a distinct form from the Aras environment. So there's a new piece of configuration that's involved called wizard views within Aras. You'll need to, one, obviously configure the DAC policy, make sure all the properties are correct on that item type. and then you'll have to configure a wizard view to be the new UI for the Aras portal. So really a 2.5-step process there to add a new item type.
Okay, great. One more question here. You mentioned that file transfer is easier to do with the I forgot the name feature. Does this also mean file transfer with the REST, the REST API is easier to do if we program these kinds of connections by ourselves?
No, that was specifically, so that file transfer improvement is specifically around the configurable web services. Just adding more, I guess, adding more configurability is the best way to describe it. So when in terms of configurable options, making it easier to specify that, this is a file upload or a file drop, and improving those pointers. When it comes to working with the normal REST APIs, none of that is touched when it comes to CWS.
All right. Give it another couple seconds here, see if anyone else has any other questions. Otherwise, we will conclude this section of the webinar. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. Anything else pops in, I'll let you know. Milan.
Alrighty. So with that, we'll move on to our sort of final wrap up here. Give a little heads up of our future events. So first things first, for those of you that are subscribers through Razorleaf, we're having our subscriber user group October 7th to 9th in Cincinnati, Ohio. So you'll get to meet with some Aras experts like me and some of my coworkers. You'll get to take a look or get to meet with a few of genuine Aras employees as well. Those who are pretty experienced in the solutions, do demos, do the development, as well as meet with admins and users like yourself. So this is an open invite to any subscribers with Razorleaf, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Rodney Coffey, or Julianne to get registered for this event. Along with that, there is the next Tech Tuesday that we're targeting to be in February. The next Aras release is slotted to be right around the holiday season. We don't want to take up all your holiday time learning about more Aras technology. So we'll take a quick holiday break and come back in February. Those will be targeting releases 33 and 34, and we're going to be looking into maybe including some other new content with our next Tech Tuesday.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Milan, for your presentation today. Thanks everyone for being patient through some of the technical challenges we had about response time. We'll try to take a look at that for the next round of webinars we run here. So with that, we're going to close today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be sending out the recording in a couple of days. And if you have any questions, as Milan spoke, please send Milan or Rodney an email or even myself. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.